Howdy there folks, my name's Glenn and this is Camp View, and on today's episode we're going to be camping inside of Chiricahua National Monument at Bonita Canyon Campground. And I'm going to give you a tour of that little campground, show you what I think, and we'll get a little bit of an idea of the layout of this place. Before we enter, I always like to show Chiricahua like at the entrance to show you, right out here you do see some trees along probably some kind of water source out there, but otherwise it's very hot, arid, and dry grassland up here, and you've got the encroaching Chihuahuan Desert in southeast Arizona. But we're going to be heading on in there, and it's gonna look like a completely different world, especially the further you go up. But where we're going at Bonita Canyon Campground, if I remember correctly when I was here before, it was very nice, shady, and wooded. So it'll be a very different world than what we see right here, right up the road a couple miles. So some basics here. Chiricahua is what's known as a sky island. The Chiricahua Mountains specifically, meaning the higher you go up, you'll see a bunch of different trees and different biozones. It changes with elevation, and there's different animals that live at different elevations and all that. You can already see, even just coming in this little ways into this little canyon here, I think these are some kind of pinyon pine and juniper plants, probably some alligator juniper and various oak trees. See how fast it changed? It's already starting to not look anything like it did right back there a couple miles. So what I'm going to do, what I like to do on these types of things, is to make a beeline for my campsite. We'll kind of drive through the campground, get a sense of if it's crowded now or if I'm the only one here. And then I will kind of give you my first impressions of the campsite itself before I set up my tent. Then I'll get set up. I actually see down there, I don't see anybody at all. Weird. There were a couple people that booked campsites, and it's only 4 o'clock. But I do like to have one or two other guests, not right next to me at places like this, but it is kind of nice so I don't feel completely alone. I do see somebody. So we'll go down here. So maybe there's our other campground guests. But I remember this like it was just yesterday. Not much has changed. Look at how well manicured this campground is. All of the sites are just so clean, and they've got little fences around them. I think I'm looking at one of the sites I camped at last time back there on the left. Actually, maybe right there, Site 5. That was me. Site 5, they have the same tent pad as last time too. Wow, it really is. From my remembrance, this is exactly what I remember. And 15 should be, I think, on this outer, oops, where do we gotta go? We gotta go backwards here. We gotta go up this way, I think, and see. This lady's probably annoyed with me saying, what is he doing here? So there's site 8, 9. We need 15. 10. Can I turn left here is the question, because I think we're to the left. I'm gonna have to. There's an amphitheater here. Yep, and this is pointing me in this direction. So I think we're this corner site maybe. We do have somebody, yep, we do have somebody right next to us tonight. And I think this should be us right here. Site 15. We made it, everybody. And today's 6/9, 6/10, so it does have a reserved sign on it. It should be me. And I remember remarking on this site on my first video, it's kind of a corner site. And as we walk through here, you'll probably see, I'll show you some of these sites are uncomfortably close together in my opinion, even though it's still worth staying. But this one seemed to be a little bit more off the beaten path. So let's get out and get first impressions and see. And here we are at site 15. And there are a few campers here tonight, but you could see Site 14 is there and it's pretty far away from me. There's some folks behind me in a rig, but still pretty good distance. And then there's those blue, I want to say Mexican jays. They have really unique birds here that you don't see in a lot of other places in Arizona. But we'll go in there and take a look. And what I'll show you first is up there. You could see those beautiful cliffs. So it's proof that we are down inside of a canyon. All right, so let's look at 15. One thing I remembered from last time that I remarked on in my video is it's very large. It's got a lot of square footage in here. So this is me. So they do have bear lockers here, so that is a sign of something, right? Yeah, they do have black bear in this area, so very unlikely that we'll see it, but if you have scented items or food, it's recommended to store them in there. We'll take a closer look at all the amenities and talk about some regulations that they have here, but this is the campsite, and they do have like different size tent pads, but just like this one, just like when I was here last time, they have this nice loose gravel filling them, and they're all flat, level. This one's a little bit bigger, I think, than some other ones. So if you have a big tent, Site 15 might be your best choice too. We'll get you a look at the tent pad before I set up. But yeah, this is where I'm gonna be sleeping since I am in a tent. And just as I hoped, because I've been out, in the grasslands and desert landscapes, exploring old ghost towns where there haven't been any trees at all, and I've been baking in the sun all day. And I'm happy to report, just as I predicted, coming up a little ways in elevation, plus having all of this shade. It's actually 4 o'clock, so we're probably around the warmest time of the day, actually, but it is quite comfortable. Like, I wouldn't say I feel uncomfortably hot. It's a little warm, but it's not brutal at all, and I knew the shade would protect us, and it should be getting down into the 60s tonight. I predict somewhere between 60 and 65 degrees. All right, I will see you guys in a few minutes. I'm gonna get all the chores done, get the tent set up, and then I'll show you what I did with the place, and we'll talk about some amenities. Set up my tent and wanted to show this to you and point out a couple things in case you're a tent camper like I am. So as I remembered, I have to give this campground maybe the award for some of the best tent pads you're gonna find out there. I don't know, they just did a great job, and they put some kind of gravel in there, so it adds some, remarkably, just like a cushion. I don't want to say it's like kitty litter, but maybe just really small, fine gravel in there. And they had it years ago when I came here, so I figured back then they would just let it go, but they certainly did not. Everything is as beautiful as it was when I was here last time. And I found that every single stake went in with no problem. It went in firmly, so I feel confident that the hatches are battened down, but it wasn't, none of them got stuck on any roots or rocks or anything like that. So once again, easy going when it came to setting up the tent here. So I think we got the tent pad pretty well covered, so let's look at some of the other standard amenities that all campsites here should receive. So you could see, as any national park managed campground, you always seem to get your picnic table and then a grill, but last time I was here, and I'm gonna guess it's the same now, they don't allow ground fires here usually. And you could bring your own little firing, but it has to sit a certain amount over the ground. But they do have the stand-up variety of grills, so if you want to cook or make a fire in that, as long as there's no fire restrictions, you should be okay. And of course they have bear lockers at each site. You don't have to share them here, as far as I know. For those of you that worry about wildlife, I wouldn't worry about it, but the key is put your food either in the locker. They may allow you to lock it in the car here. This isn't, some areas will force you to put them in the locker and not leave them in your car or truck. My recollection is they let you leave them in, either put them in the bear locker or your vehicle and lock it. And you can see, I'm gonna say probably every site in here is gonna be in the woods. We'll walk around and take a look at some sites, and at least some of the vacant ones today, and we'll make sure of that. But they do have these nice fenced in areas around each site. Like, each site is really well manicured. They really did a bang up job at this place. All right, we are at the entrance here to Bonita Canyon Campground, and there's some basic information. So they do have fire danger. So use small cook stoves, avoid fires. So I don't know if that means you're not allowed to do fires or they prefer that you don't. But you could see there's information about making reservations, respecting wildlife. This is important, and I'm going to show you where and why. The under 29 feet thing, I would pay very close attention to this when I mention something. And then here's the layout. We're here, Está aquí, and we're gonna kind of walk down. We'll look at the first set of sites. We'll check out the restrooms. Yes, they do have restrooms with flushing water. And we are way over here. See site 15. Maybe now you can see why I chose it. It is kind of far away from others, so I thought that would be a good choice, and I am pleased with it. So, and I did notice a couple sites. I want to say it's these two, the ones that say host other. I noticed those actually have electric and water hookups for their RVs. I saw a hose going into the RV for water, and I saw electric boxes. I think they do have site numbers, but they're not shown here. So we're gonna just assume that site 22 is the last, or I'm sorry, site 23, 24, 25 that comes on this side are the last ones, and then whatever those are not reservable, and they get special amenities that the rest of us don't. I'll point out if I see something contrary to that. So the way this works is, I will try to see the majority of the sites for you, and I'm gonna try to just go in order. I'll make a couple comments here and there. I'm gonna skip over sites that people are shacked up in, but I do plan on in mid-morning tomorrow, usually when the campsite is at its emptiest, I do a complete drive-through here on Campview where I don't talk, I don't do any commentary, but you do get to see every single site. So double check that, or go to our website at campvue, campvue.com, and then you'll be able to find Bonita Canyon Campground. There'll be information on there, and you can even write reviews. So if you've camped here, you'll find my reviews there. I'll write one from the past visit and then one from this visit, but definitely help write reviews if you've been here, because by writing reviews, you're actually adding intelligence to the website that I use that helps other people out. So it's a really cool feature. Go check it out. So let's start with site number 1 on the tour, and it is adjacent to site number 2. I wasn't sure if that was 2 or 3. So now we're kind of getting into the sites that are a little closer together, but site 1, I would say these sites are nice because there's like a dry creek. Now if there's a heavy rain or something, this will have water running through it, and that could be quite dangerous depending on the time of the year. But we'll get to look at another site. So these are actually pretty nice. So I do like this one a lot, site number 1. What I do not like is, so there's your tent pad. So you got a nice tent pad the size of mine, but then here's what I was kind of talking about. Like, you literally have the next site over, site number 2, you've got the picnic table and the grill. Their tent is back a little ways, but imagine there's a rowdy group there or something, and then you're tired and you want to camp here, you're in a tent, and then you got that. So that, when I was saying earlier, they do tend to pack them in here a little bit. This is a good example. There's some that are even tighter, I think. Not that I would be too discouraged. Most people are really quiet and cool, and if you come out this time of the year, chances are there's not going to be anybody here. But you can kind of see site 1 and then site 2, the adjacent site, and then site 2's driveway, which does slope downwards ever so slightly. The tent pad's like underneath that big tree, you got good shade. There's your picnic table and grill, and then here's site 1 for a reference from what it looks like from site number 2. And then now we come across the street to site 3. Another, like these sites so far, they are pretty spacious, right? Site 3 doesn't have any neighbors to the left or right of it, but it has one right on the other side. I'm gonna guess that's site 25, the last of the sites. But you know, these sites here, everyone so far is fairly level. It does slant up ever so slightly, but the tent pad is more level. So if you're in a tent, you're good. And then if you're in a van or something like that, I still think got a very slight slant to this, but nothing that I think is going to cause too much grief. But here's a good example of what I've been saying. Here's site 3's tent pad right there. And then this is probably, we're going to go around towards the end on that street. I'm guessing site 25, but look right there. I mean, just feet away from where your tent goes, really. I'm gonna guess maybe to the bear locker, to the corner of that tent pad is probably less than 10 feet, right? And you got people here. And then, you know, it just sometimes can be awkward a little bit. Sometimes, most of the time it's not. But just be wary. If you have to choose, everything is wonderful. Like if we stand and face this way, everything is awesome. Like you couldn't find a better site until you turn around and you're like, oh, I didn't see you there. Don't mind me. So now you know why I took such care and watched my old video to figure out site 15. This is exactly why I chose it, is I wanted to avoid those scenarios as much as possible. So, and I would say most sites seem to have a little bit of tight quarters like that. Now, if you're in a group and you're with 2 groups, like 2 families, and you each want your own site, then something like 1 and 2 would be perfect. So in that scenario, it works to your advantage. I'm just saying if you're a solo like me and you like peace and quiet, that's where it gets a little iffy. Now site 4, I think we got something to talk about. Make note of this one, site 4, because I'm liking it. Site 4 has a nice flat driveway. So if you're in like a camper or trailer, you're gonna be happy. It's huge. Site 2 is kind of over there, so you do have good distance. Then there's nobody on this side. So I would say site 4 is gonna be one of your top picks here for privacy, levelness, and just a really cool setting, because I do like this little creek right behind here. If only it had running water. I don't think I've ever seen it with running water, and you probably have to wait for a summer thunderstorm to cause a raging river in your backyard, but still it's kind of picturesque and quiet and nice back here. And it's huge, so I don't know if I made note of this one last time, but had I known this, I may have actually booked this one on this trip, because a lot of the RVers seem to be back where I'm at. I could have had complete privacy over here. So I would actually say, now that I'm kind of seeing this one for myself, I have to think about it. I might actually say I prefer site 4 over 15, but let's table that for the moment. Let's put site 4 and 15 into our favorite sites bucket. And then at the end, we can kind of review all of our favorite sites. One nice thing to note that I like to note, because you don't see this at every campground, but they do have trash and then recycling for aluminum cans only. And they are very generously spaced out. So you're gonna find one really close to your campsite in here. And then you're also gonna see these. You don't see this that often, but they do have a special place to put ashes from campfires for fire safety. So if you do decide to do that, I would highly recommend you make good use of that. Now they do have water spread out very generously. There's probably one of these spigots every like 2 or 3 sites that you'll see. So you do share them. I don't think each site gets their own, but every couple sites do. And the water seems to be turned off, at least over here right now. So it might just be a seasonal thing. Check recreation.gov always, because usually they have facility notes on their page that will tell you. In fact, actually, I think I see water. Oh, I think it just took a while. So scratch that. It just was delayed. So make note of that. Don't give up. But the water is running, not the greatest water pressure, but it's actually very cold, and I don't want to waste water in this dry climate. So I needed to wash my hands anyway before dinner, so there we go. Now, if I remember correctly, this next one is where I camped on my first time here, my first and last time camping here. I want to say it was Site 5. Let's see if I am remembering that correctly. You know, it's just so weird how every single detail is exactly as it was when I was here. I remember this, my site, this is Site 5, had 2 bear lockers many years ago. It still does, because I think that site next to us is one of the sites on the other side, has its own bear locker. So I guess you get your pick. Note that the signs also show the direction to the nearest water spigot. But yeah, I camped here. I remember it almost like it was just yesterday. And I liked this site a lot. My only nitpicks with this one are, as always, you got somebody right on the other side over there. But I recall, like, if there were people back there when I stayed, there was no issue at all. I had a fantastic time. In fact, I'm remembering the only issue I had. Depending on the height of your tent, this tree right here might be sitting a little low. And I remember when I was here on the first video, I made a remark that I wish I brought some of my hedge clippers so I could like trim that down. It looks like it might be a little higher up than it used to be, but it still is the same thing. So if you think your tent, I'm gonna guess that's probably, the lowest hanging ones are probably around 6 feet off of the ground, just the 2 right there. So it won't cause you a big issue, but if that bothers you, make note, that might be the only like biggest nitpick with Site 5, and I would say it's negligible. And we're gonna skip that one today, 6. Oh yeah, and I remember there was a water spigot right here when I stayed too, right between 6 and 7. And I remember when I camped here last time, they did have one of the nights, I think it was a family, like a father, I'm not sure if there was a wife with them, but 2 really small kids. And you know how they can get excitable sometimes, so I was over there, but it didn't cause any issues for me. So I would say these are spaced out pretty nicely. On this side, it's really behind Site 5 where there's that other site. But this one, if you're gonna pick between 5 and 7, I would go for 7, honestly. Got a giant tent pad, much bigger tent pad than 5, maybe even bigger than mine, I'm not sure. I think it might be slightly bigger, and plenty of open level space. So you can't go wrong with 7, and your only privacy concern is gonna be like right there. But there's a lot of like stuff growing in between, and I would say that's better than some of the other ones that we've seen. So I could give you at least my seal of approval for 7, but I'm not really willing to put it into the favorites bucket yet. So this is what I wanted to show you here when we were talking about length of RVs. In fact, I think I caught it on my first video here. Somebody came through with a really long camper, longer than they recommended, and he bottomed out. And you could hear the metal scraping kind of at the bottom of this thing there, so. Oh, God, that's horrible. It's the back of his trailer that he's scraping on that. But that might be helpful for you to see in case you're towing a camper like that. I don't know how long that is. It looks pretty long, but that dip right there is not friendly to campers. This is the exit, how you get out, so do pay note. I mean, if you're gonna bottom out on that other dip, you're definitely gonna bottom out on this one. This one looks like it's a little bit steeper. In fact, I wonder if that white mark is a scratch mark from somebody. Now they do have one restroom facility here for the whole campground, but they do have flushing toilets. It's this stone building right here. And the last time I was here, it was really nice. And we will check it out now again in 2026 and see the status. It's my favorite part of the show. Not really. I usually hate doing this. I'm always paranoid, but I always double check to make sure there's nobody in there before we go in. And just to be clear, we are doing the men's room. Now it is compact. It's pretty small, but you do have water. I think, yep. You do have water and it works. They have some Purell soap. They got a hand dryer. These are not stocked with any kind of paper towels at the moment, but do note, it's very clean. I give this a A+ for being this remote out here. This is really nice. I can tell you, compared to a lot of national park campgrounds, this is much nicer. You can see the toilets are clean as they were last time. And then we'll look at this one. I just need to make sure that someone didn't leave a surprise for us. But here's the other toilet, and that's it. There's no urinals in here, and there's no electrical outlets. Some people like to know if there's electrical outlets to charge things, but I did not see anything like that in here. The only issue I ever had in this restroom is, and I think it was the little boys that were camped up next to us last time, somebody kept peeing all over the toilet seat. So it was campers doing it, almost certainly the little kids. I mean, what are you gonna do? But if you have kids and they do that sort of thing, be mindful of other people, please. So now we're getting into the more populated section with 8. We'll skip that one. And here's 9. We're getting closer to my area now. But 9 actually is a pretty nice site. You could see it kind of is up close to the site on the other side next to mine. I think that's 14 over there. But really nice big site here on 9. I would say I would choose this one over a lot of other ones, but you do have the tent pad close to the neighboring site. But most people are quiet, as we've said, and you've got plenty of space. 10 looks okay, but I'd say out of all of the sites we've seen so far, 10 is the most slanted, the most uneven. It's kind of slanting down this way. Now the tent pad, if you're in a tent, fixes that problem and keeps it level. But I would be mindful of that. And you can see the proximity there between other sites. And we'll come back here really quick. There's this amphitheater. And we'll show you this. I don't think I've ever been here when they've done any kind of ranger-led things. But it's beautiful with the backdrop that they have back there. I just like coming back here to look up at those mountains there. Now 11, 12, and 13, I think, well, 11 and 13 are taken and 12 may not be back there, but it's kind of sandwiched in between the other two and there are people having dinner and hanging out. So we're gonna skip those and we'll head back down our way. But that's a little dead end anyway. I'll just kind of show between the trees very briefly. I like these sites. I just can't tell how close they actually are. Like that one over there, site 12 with a tent on it, looks pretty good to me. Actually over here is 13. This one actually might be a good one to look at. So there's the amphitheater right over there. And then you've got 13 kind of off on its own. So I'm gonna put 13 into our favorites bucket that we've been kind of keeping here. And we'll mention those at the end and kind of summarize our favorites. But this will definitely go into the favorites bucket because it is a big site. It's level. You've got that view, which a lot of sites you wouldn't be able to see that because of the tree cover. And your tent pad is way back here. And you've got nobody on either side of you. Everybody is across the street from here, but kind of to the left and right across the street. You typically have your trash cans and ash barrel over there. And then there's that other side, I think 14. And then that white truck is us at 15 that you've already seen. But yeah, so make note of 13. This is a favorite. We'll do a sweep of 13 from this side here. And now that you're kind of getting the layout, let's kind of walk by 15 again where I'm staying. There's our water, the shared water spigot. You could see how sizable 15 is compared to some of the other ones. And like I said, these folks are really far away compared to a lot of other spacing here. So this one's kind of on the outer periphery of the loop. So everything's worked out well with choosing this one. And even behind us, now that we've seen other sites, I will have to maintain that 15 is definitely favorite bucket material. And you already know why. And then the other people, it might actually be the host actually on the other side. I think that might be one of the ones with the hookups that we talked about. So, but anyway, site 15. You will get a good look at these host sites as we do our drive-through later. I'll have the camera mounted that way, but we're gonna not bother people. I came over here because there's a group site. You can see way back there, there's lots of different tables and areas to camp. So that would be your group site here. See way back there how far back that goes. Those are hosts, so 17 I think is a host, and then the one next door I'm guessing is also. And then all of these are all occupied, so we really can't get a good look at these, which is fine. We'll just kind of do a quick walk by and then head back towards the front where we'll find the last few sites. All right, so we're winding up near the restroom again, and there are these sites here, or site, I should say, site 20. Site 20 is a keeper, I would say. So the restrooms that we saw are right down there. That's a private residence there. But site 20 is very spacious. It's on that dry creek. There's nobody to the left or right of it, just that private residence. You get some folks across the street, but I would actually put this one into the favorite bucket. It marks off all the boxes for me. I would say privacy, levelness, a cool location, and you're not terribly far from the restroom either. Site 20, remember that one. And then 21 we skipped. 22 is right next to 21. You can see here's the driveway for that. Very small driveway, so this one's not going to be good for maybe anything bigger than a Class C van, I would guess. The tent pad is actually one of the only ones that I've seen so far that's not very level. It's kind of got a bend in the middle of it, but I don't want to disturb others, so I'm going to just kind of view it from the road. But it also is very close to 22. I mean, reasonably spaced for national park managed campgrounds once again, but I would say 22, be leery of this one because of unlevelness, slight privacy concerns, and a very small driveway. All right, we're really near the exit on this one-way part of the loop, and we got 23, 24, and 25 to round it out. Site 23, we already talked about this one because site 5, remember where I camped last time and I showed you just a few feet away from here? Well, this is the one, site 23. And it's not a bad site. This would be great for a tent camper. Pull a small car up in there, put your tent in the tent pad. It's very close to the tent pad is a little too close for comfort for my taste to the grill, but still not a horrible site, but it does have that privacy concern to consider with the adjacent site 5. Now site 24 has a little bit more to talk about. Site 25 is next door, but still pretty far away with some nice vegetation to divide. Really nobody directly across the street. I would say pretty level, pretty sizable. I am thinking, should this one go into the favorites bucket? I like the trees kind of interspersed throughout this campsite. I guess maybe you do have traffic now on either side of you. I'm standing on the exit lane and then where people come in the entrance, but being as though there's only like 25 sites here, I don't think that's going to cause you any major headaches. So, 24, I think I'm going to go ahead, and for now we're going to put it into the favorites because it does have more privacy. Now that I see it from this side, it's spaced out well from the two adjacent sites, and there's really nobody directly across the street. So, and it's level. It's a good site, so it's going into the favorite bucket. Now the last site, site 25. I hear bees buzzing up in the trees, so I don't like that. They're not bothering anybody, but site 25, I would say a moderately sized driveway, slightly slanted, Really nice big tent pad. My only gripe is gonna be, as we already saw from the other side, look at your neighbors. That's probably site 3 if I had to guess. So that's a little bit too close for my comfort. Maybe if you're in a group and you purposely want to be close to another site, assuming I'm correct, that's site 3, and then this 125 may be good for a group like 1 and 2. We said earlier were a good choice for that. But anyway, I'd say this is site 25, and like any other site here, I'm not going to say any site is bad. There was none that I saw that I was just like yikes, except for maybe the one with the slightly bent tent pad, at least for a tent camper. I might avoid that one, but I would be happy with anything else here. And the only thing that's going to spoil a good time, if you end up with the unfortunate situation of being next to a really loud, rowdy group, and you're in one of the tighter sites like this, that's the only thing that could screw it up. And luckily, that's pretty rare in my experience. It does happen once in a long while, but if the hosts are on top of their game, they're likely keeping that under control. So I think for today, that should conclude the on-foot tour. But like I said, if you want to, we did skip a few because we had to, but make sure to watch the campground drive-through to supplement this video, because you'll get a view, whether someone's set up or not. The camera's rolling. I don't invade privacy, but you will get to see every single one in the drive-through video if you're planning, and it works out pretty well. Or you could see that here on YouTube on this channel, or you could see it on our website, campview.com. The nice thing about campview.com is you can favorite sites. You can like them or save them for future reference. So that way, as you're picking sites that you like, just make sure to save each one or the campgrounds themselves, and then you'll basically you'll be able to filter a campground by your favorite sites. So that way, if you want to eliminate the noise, you can do that on the website. A nice little feature. There's going to be a lot more cool features upcoming too. So on these campground reviews that I do and tours, I like to end it with a quick activity just to kind of show something in the area. So I probably came to the most obvious thing, which is the main overlook that overlooks the whole Chiricahua system, the national monument. It's called Massai or Massai Point, and I forget how it's pronounced. So probably not the best time of day to be here. I don't have much choice with my schedule. I did some hiking earlier. And I'll kind of talk about that to explain another good activity that you could do while you're here. But I think this just goes out to an overlook. I don't think this is like a really long trail, if I remember correctly. Half mile. Well, we'll walk down just a little ways to get some views. This morning until about midday, I did another hike, a 7-mile hike from the visitor center to something called the Heart of Rocks Loop, which some would argue might be the best thing to see in the park, but you got to work for it a little bit. There is some elevation gain on the trip there, the direction I went, and on the way back it was all downhill, so it was easier, but it was hot too, so if you come out in the winter it's probably better, but it was amazing. So I would be forgiven for not wanting to do a second hike at this point, because that took a lot out of me. But you're really getting to see, if you already didn't know by now, which I'm sure you already did, this is what Chiricahua is all known for. All of these rock spires or hoodoos and balanced rocks that just litter the landscape, thousands of them. There's our destination. I just wanted to go to that little lookout. And there's a lot to enjoy here at Chiricahua if you're not a hiker. Although the best stuff arguably are the hikes, I would say, to see the best stuff. If you bring, I brought family here before just on a day trip, and we've had a picnic lunch up here at the picnic tables. They have pavilions, and let me show you this. The lighting is actually getting pretty cool in that direction. But yeah, so you don't have to be adventurous to enjoy this place. And if you like camping but not hiking, this is definitely worthwhile if you're shopping for ideas. You know, the clouds are kind of moving over the sun, but creating interesting lighting conditions over there once in a while. Oh man, usually you're taking turns on this thing with other people, and I got it all to myself. And let me show you this. I always found this place so beautiful because they have like this weird green lichen. It's really bright green that grows on the rocks, and you can actually see it from here. And when the light hits it just right, it's almost as if it's glowing, like glow in the dark paint almost or something, kind of following the sun. And pardon the wind noise. I know we got some high winds, and I do use a wind muff. I do the best I can with what I got. There are many trails that go in between rock spires like that in that landscape. There's plenty of choices and more overlooks. This isn't the only overlook. If you're willing to hike, there's some fantastic, maybe the best overviews you're gonna get, but you gotta work for those a little bit too. And I don't know if you could see way off in the distance, that's the desert that surrounds this mountain range. We're on what's called a sky island, where we have different biozones, different animals, and different vegetation all over this because of the elevation. So yeah, this is one of my favorite things to do. I mean, I can't think of a trip where I didn't come to get this view, even with the hiking involved. I mean, it's just too much to pass up. I'm gonna leave you guys here on this note, and I hope you get out here, those of you planning trips perhaps right now. And think of us here at Campview. Visit our website at campview.com. Subscribe to this channel. You'll get a lot of free drive-throughs that way, videos, and stay on top of what's going on in the camping world.
And before we cut ties, let's review what we at Campview thought were the best campsites to try and reserve for your upcoming visit. While we maintain any site here is worth the trip, the 5 sites we thought scored the highest on size, privacy, and levelness were sites 4, 13, 15, 20, and 24. We'd honestly be extremely pleased with any of those.
Thanks a lot, and I should have a couple more campground tours like this one coming out in the upcoming weeks. Later.